What a bullet! Scott Arfield! He's been threatening that recently, and all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. Here's Sir Rory now. On the outside, decent.
Barnes! He got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Sir Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes! And Burnley leading the derby.
Obviously quickly finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell. Saved by the keeper.
Burnley won it to the end. That is magnificent. They deserve that.
On it by Paul Patella. Off for a hat-trick.
He's got it. Hat-trick for Nathan Teller. Oh, he's on fire at the minute. 3-0 Burnley. It's Nathan Teller's day. And Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby.
Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Top shot.
Oh, what a goal. Manuel Benson once more. That is top class. Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello and welcome along to the latest instalment of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redman, head of Burnley's midweek trip down to Pride Park to take on Derby County, a Derby County side that have had a bit of a resurgence recently, but did lose last time out in a game that they will probably earmarking for a win as well against a poor Swansea team, in my opinion. But we'll get into the ins and outs of the Derby form and stuff, because as usual, I'm joined by a fan of the opposition, and I'm pleased to introduce Kieran from the Rams Talk podcast. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, really good, mate, especially now the Clarets have just gone top of the league. Let's see how long that lasts. There's plenty of twists and turns to come, I'm sure, but I'll enjoy it while we're top of the league, mate. It's weird. Like, I've kind of expected us to break into the top two for a while. As soon as Edwards came in, we have looked a little bit better, but I did not expect this classic collapse from Leeds and to us now be top. And I'm thinking our Leeds will run away with it. We'll be lucky to get second, but I think we will get second. And now all of a sudden we find ourselves top. And in a weird way, I'm more nervous now we're top because it's harder to be the hunter than it is to be the hunter. And now we're top and we're the team that people are chasing. But with the form that we're in, it's in our hands. Well, it's in our hands anyway. But the form that we're in, it'll be not a bottle job, but it'll be catastrophic to throw it away from this stage, to be fair. But we'll get into predictions and stuff later on, and who you think is going to go up and who you think is going to go down. It's a business end of the season, so I like to ask a few more predictions and stuff when we get to that sense. But obviously, we're here to talk about Derby County, because that is, of course, Burnley's opponents. Tomorrow night, as we're recording this late on Monday. Big shout out to Kieran for coming out at short notice. One of the other lads at Rams Talk had to stay and stay in work. I've just got back from work myself. So before we get into it, please make sure you smash that like button. And if you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do subscribe. And of course, go and check out Rams Talk podcast. But Kieran, let's get into it. Let's talk about Derby County. Talk to me about your season so far, because I was just looking at the league table before we came onto this. And you 21st, which after that massive resurgence you've been on, even though you were poor before the resurgence, I kind of expected you to be higher. So 21st, level on points with the team that's going to be falling in the relegation zone, which I think at the minute is Cardiff City. Let's just double check that. It's Cardiff City. Are you kind of where you expected to be then at this stage of the season, or were you hoping you'd be a little bit further on, like your ambitions at the start of the season?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. It's been a strange season, really. But I think my expectations, and whether I was a bit too optimistic, I don't know. Obviously, current league position would suggest I have been a bit optimistic, but I felt that we could probably be up in and around kind of that 13th to 16th kind of spot, which is not too far away, but just far enough away from really being in that danger. Just thought we'd be able to keep picking up results as the season ticked along. Not because I think that we're particularly good, but I just think the Championship is a very poor standard, really, compared to some of them seasons where we were battling it out with yourselves for the top two, and we had McLaren and the likes of that. So I think and you guys are probably seeing that now kind of coming in, I don't think it's as good as what it's been over the past couple of years. So I did think that we would kind of be there, or a bit higher than what we are at the moment. But I think we'll probably come on to it. But I think that's just been a sign of how our season has kept changing. It's almost been like we've had 3 seasons really within the one. So yeah, it's been a tough watch at times.
Yeah, no, I agree with that sentiment, to be fair. I do feel like the Championship isn't as good quality as it usually is. I think the top 3 are the top 3 and they're head and shoulders above everybody else. Then you've got Sunderland, who are not as good as the top 3, but better than everybody else. And then you've got everybody else. And I do feel like even the teams that are battling for the playoffs, and I don't want to sound arrogant, but we've just recently come up against the Bristol City, who are currently in the playoffs or thereabouts. And we absolutely murdered them. Coventry were a different kind of game, but it's a tough place to go as a CBS. And in that second half, even though they didn't create anything, they did have a lot of the ball and we struggled to assert our authority. So I do feel like there's a lot of teams in this league that just are quite poor and not as good as the levels that, they used to be the Championship in them mid-2010s, that sort of era, which obviously you're referring to there. Obviously, there's a bit of an elephant in the room when it comes to this game. I'm not sure if it adds any spice at all, but there's a certain manager in your dugout that obviously used to be at a certain team that we don't particularly like. I mean, we're at the stage now where watching them collapse is absolutely hilarious, and we owe you a thank you, I think, for stealing and derailing their season. But I do feel like their season was slowly derailing anyway. That was just the straw that brought the camels back. But talk to me about John Eustace. Obviously, despite all his faults, by that I mean being a former Blackburn Rovers manager, I do feel like he's a good manager, and I was surprised that he went to Blackburn when he went to Blackburn. He's clearly using them as a stepping stone to now go on to what will hopefully, for his case, be bigger and better things, a team that he will hopefully be challenging for the Premier League next season or the season after, we'll see. But you must be relatively happy with him because obviously he started pretty slowly, but as I mentioned already, you have had a decent run of fixtures recently.
Yeah, I think the thing with Eustace, and like I say, I don't profess to have watched loads and loads of his football at Birmingham's and your Blackburns, but I think what he does a very good job of doing is coming in and getting players to understand what their role is in the side, not trying to ask them to do things, not trying to overcomplicate things. One of the big things that I've personally noticed when I've been watching us week in, week out is, and some players have referred to this as well, is players seem to have defined roles now in the side, so they know what they're doing. Yeah. It's not becoming overcomplicated. Whereas under probably the previous manager, you would find that we'd make 5 subs a game, but we'd probably make 9 changes in the sense of that somebody would have started at centre half, they've gone and played right back, they've then gone and played a bit further up and then moved over to left back. So just constant chopping and changing and moving around and not giving players that stability. But what he's done very well is he's come in, he's made us compact, he's made us hard to beat. He's got a big emphasis on getting balls into the box, but not just trying to cross them anywhere. It's about getting the balls into the right areas, winning set pieces, and then putting good quality balls in the box and really attacking them balls really. And to be fair, he's been quite unlucky since he's been in at Derby. Really, like we've only got one fit striker, which on Swansea. He's on loan from Swansea, Jerry Yates, so he wasn't able to play on Saturday. So we were playing without a striker, and it's been other people that probably didn't expect that have stepped up really. So yeah, we've been impressed with what he's done so far. Obviously, really interested to see what he can do, regardless of how this season ends. When he actually starts to get a couple of windows to actually build his squad and put his emphasis, because at the minute he's just in the space of having to try and get the best out of what he's got available to him. So yeah, it's been a positive start. And I think the other thing as well, which is quite interesting, just from bits and pieces that I've kind of heard in and around the club, is that a big chat, like more often than not when a manager moves on, there's a big fresh impetus in the club of no manager in the door, let's see what we can do to impress. But Warne, for his faults, was very much liked by the players, and the fans. The players, even though he wasn't very popular with the fans, the players were very supportive of him, and he hadn't lost the dressing room, although they weren't performing. So actually, I think them first 2 or 3 results, which we didn't get wins in, and was probably also a testament to how he's managed to get the players on board to play for him as well very quickly, where they weren't in a space of necessarily wanting their manager to leave. So I think he's done a very good job so far, and we just have to just hope that this being organised and being compact will be enough to get us enough points come the end of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned there being organised and compact, because obviously not this season, but last season he went into Blackburn when they were struggling, and he basically went to certain places and certain grounds. And I hate using this term because I hate football snobbery and stuff, but he kind of set up very defensively and kind of stunk the place out. They went to Leicester on the last day of the season and unfortunately won that game, which meant they stayed up. Obviously went to Welland Road as well and did the same there. Is that kind of what he's done with Derby? Has he set you up in sort of like 2 banks of 4? You mentioned hard to beat, you mentioned compact, but is that the way he's doing it? Just setting up defensively and then hitting teams through set pieces and I think you said earlier, like balls in the right areas?
Yeah, I would say so. It hasn't all of a sudden been a universe. Well, you can only do what you can do with the players that we've got as well. At the end of the day, you can't all of a sudden come in and turn us into total football. Sure. So yeah, it has been about being that and being organised. But it's also about, especially at home, like we have picked up a win away at Plymouth where we were 2 up quite early and we scored 3 goals away from home, which very unusual for us to score 3 goals anywhere. But yeah, you see it in spells where you can see that there is a bit of free flowing and a bit of forward thinking what we're trying to do. But generally, it has been about I think matching up against the opposition that we're playing against, and then trying to be a little bit more expansive against those other more, like you say, more weaker teams. I think so. Yeah, probably more so of that.
Yeah, fair enough. Obviously, you mentioned him already, but Paul Warne was the man that fell on his sword earlier this year. How did the Derby fans sort of like take to him being sacked? Was it a decision that you all wanted to be made? Were you all frustrated with the decision?
No, I think it had gone on so long. I think most people are frustrated it didn't happen earlier. I think the thing with Warne is I think he's a very nice. Well, he's a very likable chap about how he kind of comes across in the media and how he talks and a lot of the different things like that. And obviously he got the club promoted, but there was a lot of fans that weren't particularly massively on board with him in League One. Like we kind of stunk the place out quite a lot in League One really, and played a particular way, which is equally baffling with why we went up into the Championship and he, instead of just reverting to type of being exactly what Eustace has done with us now, instead of reverting to that, it was this kind of ongoing thing about trying to be more progressive and be more expansive, which we obviously weren't capable to do. So I think fans were overwhelmingly supportive. I think a lot of people wanted him to do well because of kind of how he come across. But look, serial promoter, but also a serial promoter from League One, but a serial relegator from the Championship. And I think if that decision had been made probably 3 or 4 games earlier, I think that we probably would be 6 or 7 points better off than what we are now. But that's kind of the position that we're in. Obviously, the club were trying to give him every opportunity. The timing of the sacking was all a bit strange as well, and it had probably gone on for a bit longer than we all expected it to go on for. But ultimately, the right decision I think was made, and you can definitely see a difference in how we are kind of managed now as a club and how we're run as well.
What was the main differences then between Paul Warne and Eustace? Is it style of play? Is it sort of like the way they set you up? What's the main difference? Because it does seem like that Eustace is now getting a tune out of this current team.
I think that there was actually a comment made by Marcus Harness, who's been a bit of a revelation under Eustace, where he kind of said some players, and obviously don't literally quote me on this, but some players do well in chaos, whereas he's somebody who prefers structure and organisation, which I think is a bit of a damning incitement really on kind of under Warne's management, what you don't see day to day. But the other thing as well is they seem to be refer back to the changes, like the numbers of changes that were being made in games and moving around like a lot of the time. I think it's also this. It's just this whole approach, this discipline approach around. We'll go into some games and we'll make 1 or 2 subs rather than using 5 subs, and it just keeps that group of players on the pitch, which keeps the unit playing in a certain way, not making lots of changes. So they're two big things that we've said. I think it's the discipline, the organisation, and that approach of having a game plan that is applicable, playing the percentages rather than trying to overcomplicate things too much, really. And also as well, let's be realistic. Obviously, he went in at QPR, and I think they were in a bit of trouble when he first went in at QPR, and kind of steered them away. Went in at Birmingham, did something similar, and then took them up towards kind of the playoffs before they replaced him with Rooney, and then went in at Blackburn. Admittedly, he had somebody like Sammy Smodics, who was another level that was able to keep them up, but there's probably an element of a confidence in the coaching staff from Eustace's perspective that said we're championship managers that have proven ourselves at this level, whereas Paul Warne, albeit always done it, always been at Rotherham and maybe not had the budget, probably didn't have that same respect in the dressing room of you're telling us how to do it, but you've never kind of done it or delivered it. So I think there's a couple of things like that, really, but you can definitely see just with how we kind of approach it, and it's hard to describe, but you see the way that we go about things and how we approach it, and it just seems to be like these are proper championship level managers and coach, opposed to other people trying to step up to it.
Were you surprised that he chose to go to leave Blackburn, who at the time, I know there's a lot of chaos at Blackburn in terms of the ownership, and I think that's a large reason as to why he left. And of course, he played for you guys as well. But were you surprised? I remember when the news first came out, I'm like, surely not. He's not. Derby are looking over the shoulder for relegation. They're a decent-sized club, but, Blackburn are not knocking on the door of the Premier League. That's very excessive, but have a chance of getting into the playoffs. I saw the news and I'm like, I hope he does leave, but I don't think he will. But obviously then he did. Were you surprised that he went to Derby?
Yeah, well, put it like this. He wasn't somebody who because I don't know if you know or not, but with the Paul Warne sacking, it was announced on a Friday lunchtime. Obviously, with playing then on the Saturday, so which is strange when you've had all week to make the decision and the announcement. But when I was in the pub on the Friday evening celebrating, when we were talking about who did we think we potentially could go and get, John Eustace wasn't the first name that was saying, not because we didn't want him, but he just wasn't really on the radar of somebody who we thought would have realistically been an option for all the reasons that you just pointed out with Blackburn. But the thing as well is we don't follow every club in the detail that with what's going on. So we know the history of the Venky's not being very popular there, but we don't follow it.
Popular with Burnley.
Yeah, but obviously the more that then started to come out in the days post that, you started to see that things obviously aren't quite right there at that club for what all the different things going on. I don't really want to comment too much on it because I don't really understand all the ins and outs of it. But so you can see kind of why that happens. And look, realistically, Derby, and I'm not an arrogant football fan that thinks if we go down because we're Derby, we should be getting back promoted. But you'd still hope that he might look at a club like Derby and think, coming in at Derby, even if the worst happens and they go down, that it's a good Midlands based, a good sized club based in the Midlands, which is quite close to where his family are. It probably isn't going to get too many bigger jobs in the Midlands closer to where he, to obviously his family and everything like that are. So you can see the reasons behind it, and obviously we don't know all the different conversations that have gone on around potential additional investment coming in and maybe some of the control that he has. There's a story that came out the other day about he'd overruled the decision around the director of football that's going to come in, which certainly sounds like he has a bit more of a say in things that are going than probably the previous management had, or definitely that he had when he was at Blackburn as well. I was surprised to hear it happened. Was happy that he was an option that was coming in, but definitely didn't expect him to be coming in.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's move on to Derby County and your players then. If anyone's going to hurt Burnley tomorrow night, Tuesday night, which players should we be looking out for?
Well, if I stay true to how we've been trying to play more recently, I'll go for probably a defender from a set piece more recently. So we've all of a sudden found that people have long throws apparently, but just a normal size throw really, and it put it in the right areas. So I think we've been a danger all season from set pieces. In fairness, so I think anybody from set pieces, probably the main person that's really hit form in the past. Since Eustace has kind of been in, has been Marcus Harness. He's kind of dropped into this kind of shadow striker, number 10 type role, and kind of picked up a number of different goals and been involved in most things that have been positive. So I'll probably say Marcus Harness would be main one. Normally a standout player and a fan favourite is a Bill Adams as well, who plays central midfielder. Realistically, is a holding midfielder, but under Eustace, with having a couple of extra bodies in there, he has got forward a bit more and found himself kind of in the box from crosses and different balls that have come across. So they would probably be our main danger man if we set up how I would expect us to set up, which is with a 3 at the back. And then obviously the other one fresh coming in is probably Jerry Yates as well. It'll be interesting to see how he does. Works very hard, does a lot of running. He wouldn't be somebody that I would necessarily want us to sign in the summer. But like I say, he works very hard. He's our only striking option as well that we've got at the moment as well. So obviously always kind of keep an eye out for them as well.
I'm glad you mentioned setup there, because that was my next question. The BBC have you down as a back 5, but obviously you mentioned there a back 3. I guess it's one of them back 5, back 3s that's different in possession and out of possession, with 2 full backs bombing forward and bombing back. So go into a little bit more detail about how you set up then. Is it because back 5 sounds quite defensive, but obviously back 3 with full backs getting forward quite regularly sounds a little bit more progressive. So how would you describe it?
It's a good question. I would say I did say it was a back 3. I always just say 3 at the back, but I would probably lean towards it being described as more of a back 5 really. We've until Ryan Niambi, another Burnley favourite, I suppose, from his time at Blackburn. He's realistically a defensive right back or right-sided centre-half, and he'd been playing as a right wing-back until he picked up an injury and was out for the rest of the season. So, it will be 3 centre-halves, which will be, unless there's an injury or something that we don't know about, that will be Nat Phillips, Langas, who's the Norwegian that we've signed, and Matt Clark will be the other centre half that will play, and then it'll be 36-year-old Craig Forsyth who plays all the time, whether it be centre half or left back now, seemingly. So as you can imagine, 36-year-old isn't going to be bombing up and down necessarily as a left wing back, and then it'll probably be Kane Wilson as the right wing back. So it will generally be, like I say, a 5 at the back, with then putting balls into areas, kind of into the corners, to try and win turnover set pieces, putting balls into the box and trying to be competitive in that way. Runners in midfield, and energy and legs in there is what it'll most likely be. And to be fair, I'll be pretty confident that's what it is, because we don't have a lot of other options at the moment. We have still got had a lot of injuries, long-term injuries as well. So there's not the players kind of on the cusp of it are likely to come in.
That's my next question then. Injuries / suspensions. Who's injured? Who's out? Is anyone coming back? You mentioned Jerry Yates already, but anyone else that we need to be aware of?
I don't think there's anybody. Well, I don't think there's been anybody that's close to coming back from injury. Jerry Yates just didn't play because he was on loan from Swansea, so that was the reason why he didn't play. So I'd expect him to come back into the starting 11, which would just be Jackson dropping to the bench. So yeah, there isn't. I don't think there's any. I don't think we've got any suspensions. I don't think we've got any injuries. There isn't anybody kind of coming in that hasn't generally been involved. Obviously, we have kind of been in a bit of a position where we recovery wise, which might have had a bit of an impact maybe on Saturday. But we obviously played against Preston on the Wednesday evening because they were in the FA Cup against Villa. So we played on the Wednesday and the Saturday. So obviously there's been, over the course of the 10 days, there's been a bit less time recovery in there. So hopefully that doesn't impact us too much. It'd be interesting to see how, obviously you never know how the games are going to go, but it'd be interesting to see how we approach it, because there are a couple of people. So Jeff Hendrick, obviously, who was ex-Burnley as well. We signed not too long ago, but he hasn't actually played a minute yet. I think he's been on the bench every game, but he hasn't come on as of yet. So I don't know.
He was there, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, I think most of us have. But he's but he I think he was more of a dressing room signing rather than somebody who was expecting to come on and impact games. But I don't know. Maybe he may be somebody that comes on if we're struggling, or maybe to try and change a game or impact it, which we haven't seen so far. So yeah, there isn't any major stars waiting in the wings, I don't think, to necessarily come back into the squad.
Fair enough. Let's move on to predictions then, please, mate. We'll start with predictions for the match. What's your score predictions, please?
So everything would suggest that we're not going to win this game, because obviously I don't think you guys have lost in the league, have you, since start of November or something like that?
I think it's we're 27 unbeaten. I think it's the 23rd of November the last time we lost.
Okay, so yeah, so well, you're due a loss then, aren't you?
No, you could say that, mate. Yeah.
No, I think, again, I haven't watched a lot of the Burnley games, but obviously I know notoriously there's not a lot of goals normally in them. They normally are quite tight affairs, which I think will suit us down to the ground, actually, or will definitely keep us in the game. I think that we might sneak a point in this one. I think that obviously two sides, both a lot on it for both sides. Obviously you guys trying to secure that top two finish. Derby still trying to stay in the league. We're normally quite good at home, and normally, like I say, we get good support, and we do get a bit of a rallying at home and playing certain spells. So I think that we'll be in the game. I think that we'll have a chance. And I just fancy us to nick a point. I think it's that business end of the season where from both sides, teams you don't expect to pick up points, and then battles and obviously it'll be a bit boring if you just keep winning all the way through to the end of the season.
I'm not sure I'll find it very boring, mate. The rest of the league might.
Yeah, they'll want to keep you excited, though, won't they? The Burnley players will. So I reckon maybe a point.
Fair enough. To be honest with you, I came into this quietly confident that we'd be able to do a professional job on you, even though you frustrated us at the turf and did a very good job there. We are a bit of a different team now. Marcus Edwards coming in has helped us a lot. He runs at defenders. He creates stuff. We didn't have that earlier in the season. We didn't have that quality to unlock defenders, because it were a running joke that Burnley would draw 0-0 every week. Obviously, we drew 0-0 with you up at the turf. We drew 0-0 with Preston, Stoke City, Oxford United away from home. We just drew all the time. And if Marcus Edwards was here, I genuinely think it's like 10 0-0 draws we've had. If Marcus Edwards was here, I think 3 of them, at the very minimum, potentially even more, are 1-2-0 wins, and then we are a little bit higher up. However, the way you've just described, I say higher up, we can't be higher up the top of the league, but a bit more of a gap is what I meant, before someone gets in the comments and gives me criticism. But the way that you said you set up with 5 at the back, and then me remembering that game at the turf and how difficult you were to break down, has left me a little bit worried that it could be another classic Burnley 0-0. But I'm going to go with a 1-0 to the Clarets, because I just think we should have the quality now that Edwards is there. But knowing our luck, Edwards will tweak his hamstring early on, then he's out for the running, and then we end up finishing 3rd. But that brings me on nicely to who do you think is finishing in the top 2, please, mate? And who do you think will win the playoffs?
Oh, good question on that. So I would definitely, obviously I don't want you to get anything tomorrow, but I would like you guys to finish in the top 2, purely because I don't want Leeds to obviously finish in the top 2. But I do think that you will. I do think you'll win it. I think that, like you say, the way that you've just described, though, your season, you've been hard to beat. Like something like 17 goals or something that you've conceded all season. So it's going to have to be a monumental.
It's 12 now, mate. It was 11. And then Coventry scored a goal that should not have been a goal, by the way, a clearly offside goal. So yeah, it's 12 now.
Yeah. So well, okay, sorry then. You're better than what I said then. So it's yeah, only conceded 12 goals. So obviously very professional, very organised. Scott Parker. History says that he gets teams promoted out of the championship. He's very good at obviously doing that. The budget. So I think you guys will go up. And I think Sheffield United will as well. I think the battle for second will be between Sheffield United and Leeds, but I just think Leeds will do what Leeds do, which is they'll bottle it and miss out on the top two. So that's my prediction for. I think basically it'll be as it stands. And then the playoffs it's a really difficult one. Well, obviously it's always a difficult one to call because it's a complete lottery. I think if Coventry can sneak in them, I think that they'll have an outside bet. I don't by any means think that they're the best side that would be in them playoffs, but history says with Frank Lampard, he's one of them that knows how to find a way to win them big games and the big occasions. But I've just got a sneaky feeling that that Sunderland might do it this season. I think that they've got obviously there's a lot of stories there, isn't there, with Bellingham and everybody like that in there, and obviously they've been the best of the rest, haven't they, this season, and with where they've come from. So they'd be my outside bet, but equally somebody coming into the top six with a bit of momentum versus Sunderland, who've probably spent the last couple of games and the remaining games in that bit of a in-between area, not nowhere near challenging for the top two, but nowhere near dropping out of it. Maybe there might be a bit of complacency that comes into it, but my bet at the minute would be Sunderland.
Yes, if we don't go up in the top two and we fall into the playoffs, Sunderland are the team that worry me the most. They've got some quality players on the ball. They've not really been doing it so much recently, but like you said, I think they've taken the foot off the gas. Lefay's been injured. Lefay will be back for the playoffs. So Sunderland, especially at Wembley, big pitch, energetic players like Bellingham and Rigg, and quality players like Lefay, that they are the team that does worry me. But
they've overturned that hoodoo of Wembley as well, haven't they? They won the Papa John's Trophy and then the playoffs as well. So they've overturned that hoodoo of however many visits it was without winning. So they'll be a bit more confident with recent success there, you'd think.
Last prediction from me: do Derby County stay up? And if so, who are the three teams that are going down?
Good question. Obviously, they're to be shot at now, aren't I? But I'm going to say yes. I think that Derby do stay up. I think Plymouth go. And I think Cardiff go. And I think the third spot is between Luton. Obviously, well, to be fair, I'm not making a huge leap, am I? Here, I've named three of the bottom five, and said that we're staying up. But I was having a look at this earlier on today, actually, and there's a lot of interesting games at the back end of the season where teams are playing each other. So I looked at Stoke's fixtures as an example, and they've got Luton tomorrow night. They've got Cardiff on Saturday. They've then got Sheff Wednesday, but then they've got Leeds and Sheff U. So they've basically got two relegation candidates, and then they've got a Sheff Wednesday game where Sheff Wednesday won't have anything to play for, followed by your two rivals for the top two.
Fingers crossed they win them two games.
Yeah. And then they play us on the last day at Derby.
Ooh, do they?
I can see. I would love to see a situation where we're out of it and we've got the chance to potentially send Stoke down. But the reality of it says that we will probably be well in the thick of it, and it's all on that last day. So I am going to say that I think it will be Plymouth, Cardiff, and Stoke are the three that get relegated. I think Luton are going to string a couple of wins together and manage to get out of it.
Yeah, fair enough. Luton have shown a bit of fight recently, so you might not be too far wrong with that. But Stoke did batter QPR recently as well, which were a result that came out of nowhere. But QPR in absolute freefall. So we'll see what happens at the end of the season. We'll wrap it up there, mate. But before we do you want to let everyone know where they can find Rams Talk and any Derby County content that people might want to digest before or after the Burnley game?
Yeah, 100%. So obviously you can. It's at Rams Talk. And obviously share a number of content on there for the rest of the team. So go on there. We obviously do regular podcasts and a lot of interesting content and stats, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more coming out in the build up to tomorrow as well.
Yeah, well, we'll wrap it up there, mate, like I said, but good luck for the rest of the season. I hope you stay up, but of course after tomorrow, please, mate.
Yeah, you too. Likewise.